Yep.
Anyway.
Cool.
Some days before the 19th, it's reported that Ron went to get his blood type tested. Now, he paid for this procedure off campus when it sounds like it was a free procedure on campus. And
can I ask, how do... and I'm going to ask this for a lot of this because a lot of things in this case are just stated. Is it just a generally accepted fact that that was free, or do we know that...
It was free.
Okay.
It is reported that it was free, and we also know that he did go off and did pay for it because the coroner did the testing.
Right. I knew about the actual test. It was the free portion that I could never really pin down.
Yeah, it was part of Student Health Services.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Plus, you can also go to the Red Cross and donate blood, and they'll type your blood for free too.
Even at that day and age?
The Red Cross was around in '53, wasn't it?
It was, but actually, one of the you often had to get your blood typed first before you could go.
Oh, really?
Donate it in those days. That was one of the reasons that people suggested he might have gotten his blood typed, but it doesn't necessarily explain why he would have gone and paid for it, because it was $20 to have the coroner do it versus free, and $20 back in '53 was kind of a lot of money. I mean, it wasn't like buco bucks, but it was, not something.
$20 today is decent.
Yeah, it's not something that a normal college kid would be like, oh yeah, I can throw that away on this thing.
No, in '53, that'd be over $100 today.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I interrupted you. So he went and got his blood type done off campus.
Yeah. So, like I said, a lot of people find this to be kind of suspicious, like he was planning something. And to be totally honest with you, it does confuse me, the motives behind, going to spend, what is essentially more than $100 on something that you could get done for free. But we'll dig into that a little more when we start talking about theories. It's just something that you should know about background-wise. 19th of April in Ohio was reportedly very cold outside, like record-setting cold in Columbus, which is only 70, 80 miles away from Miami, Ohio. In fact, the coldest April 19th on record is 1953, this same year.
That gives you a good idea of actually how cold it was.
I think it was 19 degrees outside Fahrenheit or something like that. It was frigid.
Why do people live there?
It's not usually. That's record. Usually it's kind of, in the 60s.
27?
No, it's usually a nice, like it's kind of like it is in Portland. It's
mid-April. It should be like at least in the 50s.
But this was extremely abnormal, which is why we even bring it up, because he did go disappear on a night where it was abnormally cold. It wasn't like a nice spring
he wouldn't be inclined to go out in that kind of weather.
Right,
Got
exactly.
it. Especially in his state. Got it.
So, as far as we know, this is how things went. At about 8 p.m. on April 19th, Ron called the house mom, which is a bit tricky for me because he was the RA in a dorm, and usually I associate house moms with like fraternities and sororities, but I guess that was a thing that existed back then.
I got
now.
Yeah, I know. Now it's like, I think the difference is it was kind of even though you were a young adult, you were not smart enough to take care of yourself, and therefore there had to be a woman around to help you take care of those things that you couldn't figure out how to do, because it's a 50s mentality. I'm not being sexist here, but...
Well, also in those days, colleges were expected to look after you, not just physically, but also morally speaking, too.
Right.
So they were adults living in the dorms to make sure that nobody was like,
hanky-panky.
Boozing it up, having sex, et cetera, et cetera.
Hanky-panky.
Yeah.
To use
especially the hanky-panky part. Yeah,
the hanky-panky was the biggest offense.
It was.
The sex and the booze were bad, but the hanky-panky, terrible.
And I can totally see too, same thing with adult supervision. You'd have the house mother there to dole out the sheets and the pillowcases so that all the kids don't take them and make the
toga.
Yeah. When I went to college not so long ago,
2 years ago,
you provided your own. You provide your own sheets.
Oh yeah.
And stuff like that. So this is totally different to me, but I understand it was a totally different era. So there was a house mom. The reason that Ron called the house mom, in fact, was because his sheets were soiled and he needed a new set of sheets.
He soiled his sheets, did he?
Yeah. Why were they soiled, you may ask?
Why?
Apparently there was a dead fish in his bed when he got back to his dorm room.
Oh, you see? It's a dead fish. You see? I'm going to teach you a lesson. See?
Yeah.
That's what it was, right?
Yeah, it was actually.
Okay.
There was actually dead fish. I don't think it was actually.
Oh, no, I just meant all of the blather that I just did.
I don't think
bad
that's
accent.
Yeah.
Okay, let's put this on hold while I go out to Reddit and start a Reddit thread on how did the fish get there.
Yeah.
Let's see how many theories we get.
Yeah. So actually at 8:30, it took about a half hour for his new sheets to arrive, it sounds like. He somehow cleans up after the dead fish. I don't know if he sends the soiled, fishy mess with the house mom. I don't know whose responsibility it was to clean up after supper like that.
I doubt that he would hand her the dead fish. I bet he disposed of that himself. He sounds like a nice boy.
Well, I would also say that wherever the new sheets were picked up from or delivered by would also be where the smelly, fishy sheets would have been left at or handed over to.
Well, but the house mom brought the sheets to him.
Which means I would guess he gave her his soiled sheets to take to the laundry. Yeah, that's the only way it makes sense. It's not like he's just going to hang them up in his room to air dry.
No, and he probably had already moved the dead fish into somebody else's bed.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, or hopefully like a trash can.
Or a flower bed maybe outside.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know how dorms worked in those days, really, to be honest with you. I just don't understand it. He said that the dead fish was a prank played on him by another student or fraternity member, maybe. But other people on the internet, again, we'll get into this a little bit later, but some people think that he was lying about the purpose behind the dead fish.
Remind me when we get into the theories and I'll talk about the dead fish in the bed thing.
I really don't want to talk about that story again, but okay.
Do you think maybe he murdered the fish?
No, I just
it?
know the story that Steve wants to tell, and I don't feel like I need to hear it again. But
let's hear it.
It's never been on recording, so we'll do it again.
There we go.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also said that he was planning on studying for the rest of the night, although I don't really know. I don't know how we get a lot of this information after the house mom.
Yeah, I thought he had been talking to a friend and said, "Yeah, I got to go study. I got a test tomorrow."
I thought
or something.
so too,
yeah.
and it's different. You know, sometimes it says he's studying history, and sometimes it said he's studying psychology. I don't really know which is correct.
I don't think they had psychology in 1953.
They did.
Oh, they did they?
Psychology's been around for a long time.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
It was just under a different name.
I just didn't think anybody took it back in those days.
I don't know. Yeah. He was a business major, so, I don't really know what it was that he was taking. But it is also reported that around 9, Ron heard something outside his dorm room that disturbed him. But, again, I don't know how the heck we would know that.
This is such a leading statement that drives me bonkers because it is copy and pasted everywhere on the internet, and there's nothing that
nobody could have known that. But
no.
I was thinking about that too, and the only explanation I could come up with that is that people heard a noise, like more than one person heard a noise coming from somewhere. And they assumed, well, somebody, he must have gotten up to investigate the noise that I didn't bother to investigate.
Well, he was the RA.
Yeah, and maybe so more his job.
So maybe.
So that's what I'm thinking is other people heard a noise of some sort.
Yeah, I mean that would be the only that was kind of my assumption is that a bunch of people heard it and poked their heads out, and he said, okay, everybody, get back to your rooms. I'm gonna go check it out.
Okay,
or whatever.
I'll give you that.
But
that's a better explanation than the I have no idea.
But that's not how it's reported. It's just reported that he heard.
He went to investigate a dead noise.
He heard a disturbing noise.
Listen, I think the problem is when this story was originally reported, they only had 4 lines to put it into, and so a lot of this got trimmed out.
Yeah, it sure did. About 10 p.m., his roommate, Charles Finley, came home and found Ron's desk light on, his physiology, psychology, history, whatever it was he was studying, book open, radio on, and his belongings, including keys to the dorm and his car, wallet, ID, money, all in their usual spot in their dorm room, but Ron was gone. His roommate said that he thought maybe Ron had gone to spend the night at the frat house or something, which I don't know why he would have left all his stuff, but okay.
That makes no sense, including he left his coat, right?
Yeah, he left all of his stuff, yeah. But Charles went to bed anyway because I guess he just assumed, it's Ron's deal. It's nothing I need to really worry about. And then he woke up the next morning and Ron was still gone. So they notified the authorities.
What did they find?
Nothing.
Actually.
Sorry, spoiler.
Actually, yes. Kind of spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Steve was being a smartass, but it's true. The police found Ron's green car. It was like a 1939 something or other.
I thought it was a 1938.
Either way.
Yeah. He found his 1930s car.
Yeah.
Parked in its normal spot with his bass in it still.
Now that's one thing I find odd is that you would leave your musical instrument in at the back of your car when it's like 19 degrees out. I would not do that with like my guitar.
And that's the thing is that he was what kind? Was it a bass guitar or I thought it was something?
No,
like
it was a bass. It was
like an upright bass.
Yeah.
Oh, it was, okay. So which is a big instrument.
Yeah.
But even that, I mean, they don't use steel strings. I'm guessing they would use your normal natural filament strings, like horsehair. It's not horsehair, but whatever it is.
Still.
But that does not do well in a very cold environment for very long.
Yeah, no wooden instrument, really. You don't want to subject it to a lot of extremes in temperature.
Which leaving it in a car would seem to do, whether it's cold or hot. So I agree that it is a really odd thing to have done.
Maybe he was planning on leaving town.
Or, I don't know. I mean, he'd played a gig that day, hadn't he?
He had, yeah.
So, I mean, maybe he was thinking he was going to go back out and get it later on, and he forgot.
Yeah, that could have been.
Which, I don't know, but maybe.
Yeah, I don't really know why he would have left it in his car, but he did. And, nothing else really was missing. I mean, nothing really at all of Ron's was missing. And that's the last that we... I mean, presumably the clothes that he had been wearing.
Yeah, he didn't even take his toothbrush.
Yeah, nothing. Yeah. Nothing was really missing. And that's it. That's all we've ever heard of Ron.
Okay.
Yeah. There's been a lot
there's more stuff on here. You're not just ending us there.
I am. Yeah. That's end of episode. Just kidding.
Yeah, we got
one
theories.
final note here before we move on to theories, because there's just nothing to this story, unfortunately. Is that the summer after Ron disappeared, a citizen witness named Mrs. Carl Spivey, so,
She didn't have a first name.
She didn't, because she belongs to her husband or whatever.
Yeah,
she was a kind of a nearby resident, told police officers that somebody matching Tommen's description had come to her door around midnight on April 19th. She said that the man looked disheveled. He was wearing only a t-shirt and pants, which seems strange for the freezing temperatures, which is true.
No.
And then she said that the man was looking for a bus stop, but further investigation found that the Oxford bus lines had been suspended for the night. So it would have been impossible for him to take the bus.
Yeah, she said, I heard that she said he was polite and thanked her and all that stuff, but...
she was sure that it was Ron. I mean, she was sure.
Although other people are not so sure.
Almost everyone else is not sure.
Okay, so let me ask clarifying detail, because I don't remember seeing the date on this. It says the summer after, according to the quote you've got here. Is that months later, or is that a year and months later?
Months later.
So it's, okay. So that's still 2-3 months later when his stuff has been all over the newspaper. Again, these are we always complain about these later secondhand accounts of I saw him after I was informed by the newspapers.
And how does she remember that specific night for sure? Right? That's what I wonder about
too. Diary.
Well,
a weird man
or
came to the door.
That was the one night that it was 19 degrees outside, and the rest of the nights around it could have been not as cold, could have been much warmer. I mean, the weather we're having here in Portland, right? We're 70, 77, like high 70s, and then we've got 2 days coming up that are supposed to be in the 50s, and it's supposed to be back up to the 70s and 80s. So I didn't manage to find out a lot of information about the weather surrounding this day. But it's possible. But it's possible that it was kind of normal April weather, and then this one freezing cold day for whatever reason.
Or there could be some other reason. It could have been their wedding anniversary, birthday, something. I mean,
I did read
or she could just be full of it.
I did read a small little interview with her son, who had been home at the time, because she had passed away by the time this guy was investigating. And he said he remembered the guy coming, but he also remembered that one of the reasons that it stood out to him was because it was one of the only nights that his father was gone. So it could have been something like that as well, that she remembered that a strange man came to the door while her husband was gone, and that was the night that he was working, and
okay, there you go.
And it was the vacuum salesman, and mysteriously 9 months later his little brother was born.
Yeah, that's not
how it happened.
No.
Okay.
But investigators are pretty sure that was actually not Ron.
Yeah, I mean, there is some stuff, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah. Oh, the current guy that I was just talking about, his name is Detective Smith, because that's, easy enough to remember.
Yeah, it is. Okay.
So, with that, 20 minutes in, you have heard our entire story. So, you guys want to talk about theories?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay, well, I guess we should take a break first.
If you've ever read The Green Mile, you know what a lovable and relatable character John Coffey is. He was so calm and mild that it was impossible to think that he could be guilty of the crimes that he was convicted of. The man was a literal gentle giant, and in the end we would learn that he was also innocent. Sorry, spoiler alert, too late. In those, the prose of the author, though, he understands the world in a way that none of us can, and he's willing to accept his fate in order to escape it. But of course, that's fiction, and in the real world, it rarely works that way. Did you know that 4% of all defendants sentenced to death have later proven to be innocent? Now imagine serving 20 years in prison knowing you didn't do the crime. It happens all the time in this country. If you're a fan of this podcast, you're gonna get hooked on the upcoming Starz original series, Wrong Man, from the Emmy-winning filmmaker of Paradise Lost, Joe Berlinger. This new docuseries follows the stories of 3 inmates who have all maintained their innocence for 2 decades. Now these 3 men have one last chance at freedom. Over the course of the 6 riveting episodes, a team of esteemed legal and investigative experts will dig relentlessly into each case to find the truth. Don't miss the series premiere of Wrong Man on Sunday, June 3rd at 9 p.m. only on Starz. Get the Starz app and start your free trial today.
And we're back. Well, I guess one thing to get out of the way right away is that the police at the time decided that since Ron was quote-unquote rugged, there was no possibility of foul play.
Right, exactly. He was a wrestler. He was probably in really good shape.
Yeah.
The thing about it is, I don't think you can totally rule out foul play just because the guy was, muscular and in good shape.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but being muscular and good shape does not prevent a bullet from entering your body and decimating you physically.
Or, if there's like 5 dudes trying to kidnap you.
Or beat you with a baseball bat.
Or Uma Thurman,
or Uma Thurman.
Yeah, exactly.
True.
So,
yeah. Totally.
Uma Thurman?
Yeah.
Uma Thurman.
Yeah, she will tear you up.
So now that we've got that out of the way, we know
that Uma Thurman did it.
He clearly had to just have run away on his own, right?
Yeah, right.
Of course.
So, and there are some theories as to why he would have done that.
There are a lot of theories that integrate both foul play and not. So let's go ahead and just run down the list. Some of these are better than others.
True.
Okay.
The first theory that you will see out there is that actually Ron was a draft dodger. Because, as you may or may not know, in 1953, that's just about when they started doing the draft for the Korean War.
Fun times.
Yeah. But he was serving in the ROTC, and his older brother was serving in the military, and his father was a veteran. So, for all I can tell, and I've read interviews with his sister, his only living relative, her name's Marcia, and she
because his brother died about 5 years after his disappearance, right? And his parents died and all that.
His parents died, his older brother died, his younger brother died. He was one of 4. His younger brother died tragically, which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah.
So she's the only one who's still living, and she was much younger than him. She was 7 or 8 at the time of his disappearance, I believe. No. She was 10 at the time of his disappearance.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So she just seemed to feel that he was excited to serve his country. That was the sense the entire family had, was that he was really excited.
Really patriotic.
Yeah, and that, he had been preparing for that. I mean, again, ROTC, like really trying to get in there, and that it would be unlikely that he would run away to this extent.
Especially considering
to dodge the draft.
Yeah, considering this is like on the heels of World War II and everything like that. I mean, draft dodging was like looked upon as far more dishonorable
than
in those days
when it first
today.
started. Yeah, well, and the other thing is that the Korean War officially is listed as having ended on the 27th of July, 1953. So he would have been gone for April to May to June, like 3 months. He could have dodged the draft for 3 months and came back and said, I made a big mistake, and it probably wouldn't have been that bad.
I don't know what the repercussions were, if you were a draft dodger and you, after the fact, came
Well, I don't think
back-
they shot you in the head for it.
No.
So it
Sure.
seems like it's a pretty low slap on the wrist kind of thing.
But they
I don't know
probably
if
would
that's
have.
true necessarily.
Yeah, it would have been a big mark in your record. It would have definitely blackened your employment prospects. You know, it wouldn't have been the
Yeah.
end of the world, but
Yeah.
it would have been not optimal.
Yeah. So mostly, I just don't think this is a good theory.
no, I don't think
No,
so
in
either.
general,
Yeah.
Especially because they were a close family, and if you are going to do something like this, you're not going to live the rest of your life without ever getting in touch with your family and saying, hey, by the way, I'm safe.
No, I mean, you could actually, if you did do it to dodge the draft, say, in a couple of years, you show back up and you tell them, well, these 3 guys on horseback abducted me and took me to the coast and sold me into slavery.
You could.
And
yeah.
then when my master died, I escaped and went to Portugal. And,
Yeah,
you
wasn't
could tell
that a
them
story that we heard?
It was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
All right, so
Sounds
now that we've
familiar.
shot some holes in that one.
Okay.
So the next one also has to do with being
war?
drafted, but
And the
this
Cold
is,
War.
This is
Oh.
something slightly different. It's actually the direct opposite of being a draft dodger, and that is there's some theories that the CIA may have recruited him into their ranks as an operative.
Okay.
Apparently, in 1953, the CIA was actively recruiting for the Korean War
And other things. I mean, things were pretty hot in Europe at
Yeah,
that time.
yeah, and the
too.
Cold
Yeah.
War and all of that stuff. And there's a theory out there that Ron was actually recruited to be, like I said, an operative for the CIA, so he would have been, doing clandestine operations and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
He was an unassumingly attractive American man. I mean, he wasn't. There was something that I read in that article that you were talking about, actually, the one about the prom date, where they said. Hey, everyone knew of him, admired him, but nobody really knew him or had any stories about him.
Yeah,
and that's kind of
perfect
exactly,
spy.
Exactly what you want from a spy. You want somebody who looks, attractive enough that you're not going to be like, whoa,
Yeah.
oh God, but also not so attractive that you're also going to be like, whoa, oh God, right?
You mean so unattractive?
No, neither. You want somebody who's kind of middle of the road, which he was.
Not Quasimodo,
Uh-huh.
and not Marilyn Manson.
Or not Joe.
These are also all on the same end of the spectrum currently.
Versus
And
at
then-
the other end, there's Joe from Thinking Sideways.
Right,
Yeah,
and
you
not
want it
as
somewhere in
handsome
between.
and
Yeah.
stunning as the man sitting next to us every week.
Exactly. So you want somebody who's kind of average in between.
Right.
Yeah.
It's more like, well, no, I'm on the low end of the spectrum. So,
Well,
I
but
get
so
it.
yeah, I mean, he apparently had really good grades. He was smart. He was interested in serving his country with the ROTC and the family reports. He had a wrestling career, and he was well liked by everyone. But I guess my big problem with this is that it seems like at one point, sometime in the last however many years,
he would have
60
contacted
years,
his parents.
or even somebody would have just said like, hey, he's okay.
Well,
It
maybe
doesn't necessarily have to have been him.
But maybe what they did is they brought him into a super secret program that's kind of like Matt Damon in the Bourne movies, where they totally brainwashed him, turned him into a super assassin kind of guy. And he doesn't even know what his previous identity
But
was.
that also presumes that he survived his very first training session or mission, and that he didn't just fail badly by just dying all over the place on the first round. And they're like, well, this is a secret program, so I'm afraid, buddy, you're going in with the dogs and the kitties in the crematory.
Yeah, I
Could
mean,
be.
yes, but 60 odd years on, it seems like almost any mission, and this is optimistic thinking, but it seems like most missions would have been declassified to a point where you could have said, at the very least, hey, one single living relative of Ron, who is still heartbroken to this day of his disappearance. We recruited him. It didn't go well. You don't even have to say what mission. You could just say he died serving his country. He loved you very much.
Okay, but again, that's presuming that it's something that was on the books. If it's off the books, not always recorded. And two, it doesn't mean that it wasn't that somebody was recording it under presumed identity or assumed identities. It could have been, oh well, Major Lamp died in a horrible electric fire, and his bulb burned out.
Yeah, if they did assign him a new identity and everything, well, that identity is in the files as having died trying to assassinate Kim Il Sung in Korea or something like that.
Sure.
And but his original one, maybe it's not cross-referenced, and so I don't know.
Yeah.
I think that listen. I'm throwing things in there because I think this theory is
Silly.
garbage.
Yeah.
But I also we've seen things where
I actually think this theory is not the worst. I would say it's like middle of the pack for me.
See,
I
like my theory the best.
I know you do, and I really hate your theory.
I know you do. That's why I had to put it in.
Next up, on the tail end of the pack, is that the fish head, the dead fish, was actually a threat from the mob.
No. Yeah, I don't know. I think. Yeah, I guess a threat. I mean, usually a threat they use a horse head.
Yeah.
And then the fish means that we're going to feed you. So it's more than a threat. It's like a promise.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. But either way, that it was something to do with the mob. There's some speculation that he could have gotten into drugs or gambling because he played in a jazz band.
So then he was out with ne'er-do-wells in the speakeasy.
No, I think the big threat in those days was reefer. I mean, the
reefer madness.
Yeah, the reefer madness thing was a big deal.
Yeah.
So and definitely those jazz musician types, were into the reefer kind of
jazz grass.
Yeah, exactly.
I think they took him out for killing that innocent trout.
Yeah.
Could be. Yeah, the trout rights people.
Yeah, but you'll see this. Actually, you will see this theory kind of on the forums. I think it's not a very good theory, but I wanted to put it in here anyway.
And
it's kind of fun to talk about.
I will debunk it with the story that we've talked about before, which is when I was a kid, I went fishing and I threw a fish in somebody's bed.
Such things are not unheard of.
Because I thought it was hilarious.
Oh, okay, you weren't planning on murdering him?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, and believe me, it was somebody who was renting from or staying with us, and that person didn't find it all that funny, and my mom at the time yelled at me under the guise of not thinking it was that funny, but years later would admit to me she thought it was hilarious too. So now you know where I get it.
Well, here's what I will say is we can bring this up a little bit later in terms of the prank, because I have a theory that kind of explains that a little better. But all I want to say is that I don't think that it was a mob threat.
Yeah,
no.
The fish might be totally unrelated, let's face it.
Yeah, it totally could be.
Yeah.
Next theory, that he ran away from a girl.
Or with a girl.
Either
one.
There were some rumors that Ron had a girlfriend that went to a different school in Canada. I'm kidding, I'm sorry.
Wow.
He did have a girlfriend, apparently, that he was seeing that did go to a different school, went to school in Indiana. And actually Indiana University. And there was some speculation that he had maybe gotten her pregnant.
Okay.
That would have been one of the reasons for the blood test.
No.
And for him to pay for the blood test versus getting it for free, because one of the reasons that men got blood tests at that time was for paternity tests.
Yep.
Of course.
And so I guess the theory goes that he could have gotten his girlfriend pregnant and not wanted to do this blood test on campus because he was worried it would sully his reputation on campus, because apparently,
you couldn't just say I was going to do it for the Red Cross
or whatever. So he went and paid a bunch of money to have it done.
But when you say a bunch of money, I'm sorry, I know I keep
interrupting. $20.
You have no idea how much.
No, it was $20.
$20. Okay, so it's the equivalent of like $100 today. Okay, yeah,
that's a lot of money.
Okay, yeah, that's a big wad of bills for that kid.
For a college student, it would be. Yeah.
So that kind of follows that either he could have run away with this girl, but no girls were reported missing from Indiana University at that time. I mean, it seems like you would have just that would have been easy to connect the dots.
And also, the thing about it is if you've gotten a girl pregnant, the reason to get a blood test is because you doubt your own paternity, right? You doubt the paternity of the child, right? Yeah. So, I mean, why would you run away with somebody who you suspect is screwing around on you anyway? I mean, I don't quite get that.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Unless she was sleeping with multiple people and you were trying to prove to her that you were the father, which you don't, because he seems like he was kind of like the wholesome all-American guy, and that he would have felt like he wanted to take responsibility for something like that.
Oh, the stand-up guy who says, "I'm not sure it's my kid, but I'm going to be the guy who does it."
Yeah.
Wow.
Here's my blood. Let's prove it to you, and we'll run away. I don't think he ran away with somebody though. Like I said, because there was no correlating woman.
Okay.
But he could have been running away from something. But again, that seems counter to what I think I seem to know about him.
Okay, so what's the opposite theory? Because we had two. We ran away from, or ran to, or ran away from.
Yeah, well, and then there's the opposite theory.
Right.
Which is that he was trying to help out a friend who might have gotten a girl pregnant.
Explain that to folks, because I know not everybody gets what you mean by that.
So I found this online on a really lovely web sleuth forum. And this poster said that when they read about the blood test, they thought about the fact that apparently one of the tactics that guys would use if they had gotten a girl pregnant is the only way that they could do the paternity was, through blood typing. So they would get a bunch of friends together who had the same blood type.
Wait, so by blood typing you mean I have A positive and the B positive that it's my baby?
Not positive, but
really.
Positive.
But if I have B negative and the baby is A positive,
then it's likely that you're not the father.
Okay, all right. Just to clarify that.
Yeah, so they would blood type the baby, and blood type the mom, and blood type the potential father, and then, if that all came out, yes, that probably is the accurate thing. But the thing apparently, I don't have any real evidence to back this up, but apparently oftentimes fraternity brothers or just friends, a guy would say, well, hey, listen, I think I got my girl pregnant. What blood type are you? And if they're the same blood type, they'd say, hey, well, you just say you were sleeping with her too. Oh. And then it would call into question
her morals.
And
that's what matters.
But also the paternity.
But also the paternity. And then they would have no way to know which one. And then, obviously at that time, if a girl said, no, I was only sleeping with the one guy, the doctors would be like, oh, well, you're just trying to protect you're lying, obviously. And so that would just be this whole big question. And then usually they would just drop it. And
there was there was a case, I remember this was like, it's a while back, it's like in the 80s, that I heard about where there were like 3 or 4 guys who were doing the same thing, and the judge basically said, okay, well, you're all going to pay child support then.
Yeah.
And that's how that worked out.
In the 80s, I think that works much better than the 50s.
Yeah.
Right.
I think
more
probably
rights for women, usually.
It could have been back in the 50s and the 60s or whatever. It might have been just the threat of going public with having 3 or 4 guys saying, yeah, we were all having sex with you. And so the woman would just drop it rather than go through that.
Agreed.
My biggest concern about this theory is the wanton bloodletting. From the baby, from the mom, from the boy, and the boy, and maybe the other boy.
There's a whole lot of puncturing.
They're just exsanguinating everybody.
Yeah, a lot of puncturing going on.
What the hell is the matter with the 1950s?
Did you just look that word up, Steve?
No.
You sure?
I'm
exsanguinating?
Yeah. Sorry. Anyway, that theory, I guess, is out there as well, that maybe he got, but I don't know why especially if it were for that, why he wouldn't have just gotten it for free if it was just like to help a buddy out. And it also doesn't really, it doesn't.
You kind of got it. You probably want to do it covertly to not be accused of collusion.
Yeah, probably.
With your buddy. And it might be too that if that was the case, that found his blood type out and found out he was not the same type as his bro was anyway, so he couldn't be any help to him.
Yeah.
So that's the end of that.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. Or there's another possibility too, which is this. He met a mysterious, kind of threatening kind of stranger who says, basically, wrong, I'm your father. And so he goes to check it out, so he gets his blood typed and finds out that it's actually his dad that he thought was his dad actually couldn't really be his father.
Instead, it's a giant tall man in a black mask, but it still doesn't understand. Are you saying he was abducted by Darth Vader?
Somebody like that, the 50s equivalent, or maybe, and then so he decides, and it turns out his real dad, his biological dad, just says, hey, dude, number one, your dad is not really your dad. Number two, I'm a billionaire. Why don't you just come and live with me in the Mediterranean? Hell with these people. And he decided to do that.
I doubt it.
Okay, fine.
Like,
Yeah.
deeply doubt it.
That-
Because even if it was his father, I mean, like, the other guy raised him.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know.
yeah, that's
Severely
there is
cockeyed
there is
theory.
still a relation, but
Yeah.
that is another possibility too, though, is that maybe he did doubt, his own father's paternity for some reason, and he wanted to clear up those doubts. Maybe he heard a rumor or something.